Are you thinking about moving to Oregon and the Corvallis area is high on your list? Well, we've moved over 400 families in the Willamette Valley, and we can help you too. We reached out to our clients and friends and said, hey, if you're willing to go on camera and tell your Oregon story, we'll honor your time by donating to a local nonprofit, Jackson Street Youth Services. About 15 of our friends responded enthusiastically, so let's hear what these people have to say about their move here and their life in the area. We'll do our best to show you places on the screen when they're mentioned, and there'll be links in the description below.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. I'm Michael Krasilovsky out of Team K Realty in Corvallis, and today we're joined by our friend and client Denise. Denise, thank you for being here.
Pleasure, Mike.
Denise is going to share her story, in this case actually of moving back to the Mid-Valley area and what it was like being here maybe in the first place and also coming back so that you can hopefully see your story in her and learn more about the area if you're thinking about being here. Shout out, by the way, to Jackson Street Youth Services. This whole project that we're doing is a fun opportunity for us to reach out to our people and say, hey, we know you probably don't want to be on camera, but we'll donate money to a local nonprofit that we feel very strongly about if you're willing to do it. And Denise responded back right away saying, I will absolutely do this. Count me in.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Anytime.
All right. So Denise, let's dive in. Would you mind telling your story about when you moved here the first time, when that was, what it was for? Because we're already aware that you're moved back.
Right. Definitely moved back. Well, my first time moving into Corvallis, I was a wee one. I was only 4 years old. My folks moved back here for my dad to continue his education at Oregon State University. And my first home here was the student housing at Oregon State University. So it was a fun place to have my younger years. And so I basically lived here from kindergarten to 8th grade, moving through the school system here, which was fabulous. Loved my teachers, loved the schools I went to. And then once I reached the 8th grade, life happened and my mom moved the family down to California, and it was a big culture shock.
Okay.
Corvallis was very much a hometown feel, small town. Everybody knew each other, good roots, great university. I took gymnastics there as a young one. And then when I started thinking about coming back for college, my next chapter in Corvallis began, and I came back and went to Oregon State University.
So this is your third stint in
Corvallis. So I came back. I did go to another university in California and found out that that was not the right choice for me. And Oregon State was very sentimental with me having lived here before and my dad going to school there, and came back and so lived here and did the college life here in Corvallis, which highly recommend as well. Plenty to do. They have a great downtown with plenty of places to hang out and
study
places. That's it. As well as I was active in the Greek community at the university. So there were plenty of places to go to the coast, to have weekends at the coast, head over just a couple hours to Bend, to go skiing, go tubing down the mountains, as well as the Willamette here to float down on inner tubes. So it was very, very entertaining and loved the time I was here at the university. But then grown-up life intervened, got married, moved cross country, and had to leave beloved Corvallis behind. And once lived a full life of about 30 plus years later, life happened again on the East Coast, and I decided, well, where do I think home is? Home to me is Corvallis, and here I am again, and still loving every minute of it. It's like a little jewel that's hidden away in the middle of the Willamette Valley, but is still accessible to everything you need in the real world. So that's the best way I can explain Corvallis. You have, like I said, coast to the left, mountains to the right, Portland, and that scene north, and Eugene scene down south, and it's all right here within a nice, fun day trip. So love being back here and enjoying every minute of it.
Fantastic. And you've been back here on this journey for, is it like 8 or so months now?
Actually, it's been a year and a half, believe it or not.
It's been a year and a half.
Yeah, it was July of 2023 that I returned.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Time's a little bit fuzzy.
Yeah, and it goes by fast nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah, so knew I wanted to buy a home, but didn't know exactly where in town because I hadn't been back in a while. So I decided to take my time and find just the right place. And I stayed in apartments and decided thought about staying in the apartment life, but decided, no, that's not quite right for me. I need a little more of my own space. And then came to Team K Realty. I found you guys on YouTube.
Yeah.
I Googled life in Corvallis and Mike popped up. And so I reached out to him even when I wasn't here yet and found my lovely house in Philomath through him.
So what was it like working with us? Because you're right. We helped you just kind of as a casual resource with the rental market before we ever went house hunting. Maybe that's why there's a time frame warp in my mind. Maybe we were house hunting for maybe 6 to 8 months or something. But yeah, you did come back way back.
Right.
What was it like working with us?
So easy. Okay. I highly recommend Team K Realty. Like I said, I reached out to them when I was still living back in Virginia saying, hey, I'm moving to Corvallis here within the next 6 months. Just wanted to reach out to see what the process was moving to town, what apartments were available, when I was serious about when I should reach out to them, when I was starting to look, et cetera, et cetera. And so just kind of did a brief little internet, and then we set up, they said, well, call us when you get into town and we'll meet up. And at that time, we'll see what your needs are at that time. So when I got into town, I called them up and we had a meeting pretty shortly thereafter. And it was very warm, friendly, very much listened to my needs and what I needed at that time. I was still looking for a job, so I knew I couldn't home shop right away. I knew that was the number one priority. So it was basically kind of like, okay, here's where we're at now. When you get to this level, then reach out it again. And I think it was almost 6 months. I kind of reached out every so often, but then we had a lull of about 6 months. But Michael and Noel both kind of reached out a couple times during that point in time, during that time frame, and said, hey, everything okay? Just wanted to check in. And it was enough so I knew they were still there, but not enough that they were pestering me going, we want you to buy a house from us. So it was that nice balance. It was really nice. So when it was time, when I had my job and I was settled and I was done with the apartment life, I then said, okay, Michael, Noel, it's time. Let's meet up. And they were great. And they definitely lead you step by step through the process. So there is no question you need to ask. But if you do have a question, they are there for you. And that's really nice.
Wow. You are just a wonderful testimonial giver of not just Oregon life, but us as well. I thank you very kindly for that.
It's true. I don't have to make anything up.
But thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So when we were house hunting, we were looking at homes in Corvallis, Philomath, and Albany. What was it like, not like necessarily working with us? You just gave us a glowing recommendation. What was it like house hunting and deciding, I should say maybe like comparing some of these different neighborhoods and different towns? Because I do worry that people think that this is all about Corvallis because our office is in Corvallis. So a lot of the videos started here, but obviously we help people in the entire Mid-Valley area.
Right.
So what was it like for you deciding where to live?
Well, that's really hard for me because my heart is in Corvallis. Okay. Corvallis, heart of the valley. So Corvallis has always been home to me. So actually, you guys kind of had to poke me a little bit to kind of look outside of Corvallis to see what options were available. And so after I kind of stuck to my guns a little bit. I kind of said, well, let's stick with Corvallis for now. But I did extend the search out to Albany and Philomath, which are both pretty close to Corvallis. It's within 10 minutes, and Albany's within about 20 minutes. So Albany is definitely more of a city area. You're definitely looking at houses that are closer to commercial areas. I liked the Monteith Historic District better, as well as North Albany.
Oh, yeah.
Those were areas that I kind of focused my sight on. I did look in other areas, and even though I found houses I liked in those areas, they were just a little too far out for me. Okay. But the historic Monteith area had some really charming houses, some that had been redone really well, but just didn't quite fit what I needed. But I was looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a pretty small footprint, around 1,300 square feet. And a lot of the houses that I found in the historic Monteith area were a little smaller than what I wanted. Perfectly charming and lovely, but just a little smaller than I wanted. And then anything that was in my price range here in Corvallis was if I found something that was perfect, it was a little higher than my price range.
That's right. When we were house hunting, you were looking really for a particular compromise of like not overbuying the house, but still wanting some exterior space.
Right.
And so that's a fun thing to accomplish. Obviously we did.
Yeah.
Right. But there were some times when it's like the house was the right side, but there was no yard or vice versa.
Right.
Because it's actually not just you, right? You have more family that's moved here since then. Your girls are now here. So we needed to like just Goldilocks this whole thing.
It was. And I got really frustrated for a moment. And I wanted to get out of apartment living, and there was a condo that was available in the Corvallis area. And it did fit the size. However, it was a condo, and it felt more like an apartment than a condo.
Yeah.
So that I did the space was good on the inside, but and the outside there was a patio, and it backed up onto a forest. So there was the illusion of you having a bigger yard. And I thought that I was trying to make it fit.
I think I said part of that backwards a minute ago. We didn't want such a big yard, right?
Yeah.
We kept finding all these houses that were the right size, and they had big yards.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't want to maintain this.
Yeah. And so I did move to make an offer on this, but it turned out to have a hiccup that I couldn't get over, and it wasn't the right thing. And so I kind of took a break because I realized I was kind of trying to settle, and I decided, no, let's take a break. And fortunately, it was kind of weird because at the same time, what was available when they have this great search engine for houses that they put in what you want, what you're looking for, and it just gives you those houses. So you don't have to weed through all the other houses to get to houses you want. They definitely have a space you can go to and find the house that pull the houses to you that you want to look at. So it was ironic that at that same time, or maybe just coincidental is a better word, that at that time there was not a lot coming to me. So after the non-offer, for lack of better words,
we had a false start on a condo offer because like literally while we were writing the offer, we found something in the disclosure that made us decide, but this isn't going to be the right place.
Right, exactly. And so after that, there was a very limited inventory for me to look at. And all of a sudden, this little gem, this little jewel in Philomath, Oregon popped up on the screen, and it drew me to it. And I texted them. I said, how soon can we see this house? I need to see this house. And the size was perfect. The yard was a little big, but it had this wonderful shed in it, a nice little quirky little shed that we're going to turn it into something special soon. But it just checked all the boxes, and you walk in the door and you get that feeling in your stomach. And literally within days, we had an offer in on it, accepted, and boom, we were in the process. So and the right one is out there. So I guess don't settle, stick to your guns. You will find what fits for you.
Yeah. There's a balancing act there because there's always compromises. I mean, we're in a market. And I mean a market geographically, not just in terms of the time, right? We're in a market, we're in communities where supply and demand are skewed.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in Corvallis, because there's just so much demand for a university town. Right. And it's a slow growth one. So it's not like when we set up those searches, you have 300 matches, right? You get like a match a day.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? So there's always compromises there because we always say if the house is perfect, the price tag isn't, that sort of thing. But we know that even while you're making compromises, there's still something where it makes sense and you're still excited about it. And that's what we always want to find. And of course, it was a pleasure getting to be a part of the team helping you cross the finish line on that one. Yeah.
It's nice. So I am very pleased with the location. It's Corvallis adjacent. Yeah. But it's like 10 minutes Corvallis adjacent rather than what it could be more. And I still have the services and everything I need out in the Philomath. So it's lovely. And my commute to work went from 2 minutes from my apartment to 10 minutes from my house. So I have no right to...
A 10-minute commute. I mean, that's unfathomable. Yeah. Like why even bother at that point? Just put in your notice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we get spoiled. I mean, that's the joke we're making, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
You probably know this because we enjoy sharing our stories while we're working together and everything. But there was, I think, about 5 years where Ray and I lived in Philomath because we kind of hopscotch in our houses and stuff, turning them into rentals afterwards. And when we moved to far west Philomath, it made my commute like 16 minutes coming into the office.
That's rough.
And I totally had a friend be like, well, I guess I'm never going to visit you anymore.
That's rough. That's so rough.
It's, yeah. That gas mileage was, yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because my daughters and I moved here with my youngest daughter, college age, and then the rest of the family have followed us here. My oldest daughter moved from Florida. My mom and stepdad moved up from Vegas. So now we're all on the same coast for the first time in like 30 years.
Yes.
So now we're all here and we're all kind of learning, okay, yeah, right, you're just down the street. I don't have to wait to call you till you're right here.
You don't have the 3-hour thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So my daughters and I, when we lived in Virginia Beach, one of our favorite restaurants was located 20 minutes away, and it was no problem for us to hop in the car and go there and have dinner. And now, living in Corvallis and Albany is 20 minutes away. We now second guess whether we're going to drive to Albany to go to Target because it's so far away, but it's really not because it's just the perception. I think the wide open, gorgeous farm fields and the mountains in the distance and the wide open space make it feel farther than it really is.
And 2 of the 3 communities that we have here in the Tri-Cities, as no one calls it, Philomath and Corvallis, they're both historically slow growth.
Yeah.
Which means that they're very compact, too. And it's not that they're small, it's that the delineation, right, the urban growth boundary is very tight.
Right.
So Philomath, it's like you've got houses, and you've got infrastructure, and then there's farm fields.
Yeah.
Corvallis is the same way. Poof, farm fields, all of a sudden. Albany's got a little bit more growth, a little bit more expansion. Yeah. It's not a historically slow growth. And there's pros and cons to all that. But it does totally make it hard to tell what the feel is like. If you're not here yet and you just look on a map, like, oh my gosh, that's a whole different town. Yeah.
It's really
and it's
not.
Minutes between them, right? Like that's just the neighborhood farm field. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's now kind of a running joke. Yeah, we have to go all the way to Albany. And it's really not all the way at all.
Yeah. Well, you're helping really paint a great picture here, which I really appreciate. So in the time that you've been back here, I love asking people this question. And it doesn't have to be like after you bought the house, because that was very recent.
Right,
I mean, you're still unpacking boxes.
Yeah, I'm still unpacking boxes.
But in the time that you got back here, was there ever a moment for you when you were like, oh, this is home, I did it? Or was it
immediately
feeling that way like before you even got here?
Immediately. As soon, I may tear up. Sorry.
I'm not trying to get you.
But it was the minute we drove back into town, I felt like a sigh of relief. It's like, I'm home again. It was my best friend all my life lives here. We've been friends since the 4th grade. I'm not going to tell you how old I'm now, but by appearances, you can tell how long ago it was. But I was staying at her house, and I literally drove into her driveway and flashback of memories of me riding my bike to her house when we were in grade school or walking home from school. Just came rushing back, and it was just a sense of, I'm home. This is great. I'm glad I made this decision.
So thank you so much for sharing that authentically, because there really is a wonderful phenomenon here of people who grew up here and go elsewhere and realize how good they've got it and come back.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that's what happens where I'm from on the East Coast. And I grew up in a very nice, very privileged, great schools, wonderful community. But it was an assumption that you would leave.
Yeah.
Right? Like no one that I'm still in touch with is like, oh, yeah, I stayed. Like here, you talk to people and they're like, oh, yeah, I grew up here. And I always knew I was going to go to university and then hope to still get a job here, like that sort of thing. Yeah. And I just love that you came back and were yearning to come back. I mean, this was active by choice.
Oh, yeah. It was active by choice. There was no other. My ex-husband and I had bought property in Washington and planned to make that forever home. But that was because coming back to the Northwest. But after life happened, I knew Corvallis was it for me. And that there was no other choice. And, okay, we're putting a lot of polish on Corvallis because it is this little gem. We have our problems too, but they're not that big all consideration with the bigger picture. There's people that drive cars here too. But I also found having said that, my daughters also, when they moved here, noticed that people are kinder, people are more courteous. People, they use please and thank you, they say excuse me. There's just an overall small town charm to this city, to this town. It's not a city, to this town.
That's it right there.
That even though we have our quirks and foibles and stuff like that, they don't matter because of that overall.
And this is something that's come up a lot in these conversations. And I feel the same way. It's almost confusing to refer to it as city, town. What do I call this area?
Yeah.
Because on the map it says city of Corvallis, city of Albany, even city of Philomath. It doesn't say town of Philomath.
Yeah.
Philomath's only like 5,000 people.
I'd call it a burg.
I mean, even Corvallis and Albany, 60,000 people, give or take. It feels like you're in a very small city. I would just think of it as like a big town that in any given moment has small town vibes.
Right.
But I feel like that's in a good way, because when I think of small town, and I lived in Philomath too, and I didn't feel this way in Philomath.
Right.
When I think of small town, I think of everyone's up in your business in a bad way.
Right.
There's just like no privacy, nothing. Like, I don't think of that as being necessarily a good thing. Paradise is subjective, right? I'm not a totally small town person. I feel like this is just a great compromise. And we're doing however many of these interviews, and people kind of like stumbling over like, wait, do I call this even a city? I mean, this isn't New York. Like, what are we talking about here? Yeah. I think it's very illustrative of
It's definitely a town.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe if you go out on 9th Street, that's the city part of Corvallis. But I think overall it's a town just because of all the feels.
Yeah. And the driving piece there, your eldest daughter, she moved here from Orlando.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I moved here from Gainesville, Florida, which is small compared to Orlando.
Yeah.
But Florida driving was a completely different lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a mediocre driver, and it is very safe, very comfortable, very relaxed being here. And it's just a night and day difference if you're moving from a large city, stressful driving municipality to a place like the Mid-Valley.
And my daughter is still adapting. She got used to all the chains of restaurants and stores and stuff that are out in Florida and in big cities. And so she is having to adapt to that. She goes, well, let's go to Olive Garden for dinner. And I went, okay, you want to drive 45 minutes? We can do that. And she was like, what?
Fellow Olive Garden fan, that's right.
So she was like kind of adapting to that. But that's what I like about this town, because you get to go to the mom and pop restaurants. And yes, Olive Garden is great, not to disparage Olive Garden.
When you're there, your family.
All you can eat soup, salad, and breadsticks. I'm a fan. But having the family restaurant where it's authentic Italian and getting to know the people who run the restaurant and all that, that's also part of the small town that I enjoy. You can do that other stuff and special occasion it, but having the non-chains are nice.
Yeah. I love the way you put that. And I'm going to help over-explain part of what you just said. Because in the video we did right before this, one of the only critiques they had was they said, we'd really like to have some more restaurants. And I was like, well, what in particular? They're like, a really good Italian place. The Italian place you're referring to is in downtown Albany. It used to be Gambaretti's. It might be the same name.
Yeah.
We'll double check and we'll put it on the screen.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I do think that we've got a great thriving restaurant scene, local food culture. I mean, we're surrounded by farm fields, fresh, local, you name it. But we don't have the big commercial stuff, right? Albany's got more chain stores. If you want to go to an Olive Garden, you're going to Salem or Eugene, right? But we do have, I think, some great stuff here, but it's a different vibe than if you're really from a big city.
Right. True.
Is that a fair way?
Yeah, exactly. Because we got the American Dream Pizza, the Taco War. Oh, I can't remember the name of the barbecue place out there off of Walnut.
Oh, Cascade Barbecue?
Yes.
So are they dine-in or just takeout only now?
I'm not sure. I haven't eaten there in a while, and they're basically, they make enough barbecue. Whatever they have is what they have, and then they close when they're out.
Okay.
So it's kind of, you have to catch them, but it's delicious what you do. And there's also Hawaiian Boys, Local Boys,
Hawaiian Cafe. This isn't the water bottle with the sticker, but yeah.
But and there's great Thai food, there's great Indian food. I mean, even though it is small town, I think because of the university and the culture diversity of the university, it brings it into the town. So it's a very culturally rich town, I think, because of having the university here, because of those demands of the university to have that here.
For sure.
And so it's nice having that and being taken advantage of that in a small town.
Thai food.
Yes.
Have you been to the Woodsman?
Not yet.
So which Thai Woodsman in Philomath is like an old loggers bar.
I know. It looks like it should be barbecue, beef, steak and potatoes type of restaurant. There's Thai food. I haven't partaken in the Thai food in town yet.
Okay.
Coconut milk and me are not fans of each other, but I've heard, and I don't know in town, I've heard there's an in-town Thai place, but I don't have a specific.
So there's a couple that there's a few I can think of right now. I do love the Woodsman because I used to live walking distance to the Woodsman. Yeah. Love them. I'm like, please don't ever retire. Thai food in Corvallis right now. We've got Tar and Tip on campus, which has a great following and I think is a cash-only place. So if you're like me, remember to actually bring some cash. There's a new Thai place right over here in downtown, right next to where the Simply Mac store used to be. I don't remember the name, but it'll be on the screen. We'll show you a picture of it. I've been there once or twice. I thought it was very good. And then there's also a place that's in the new commercial development on 9th Street right by Goodwill, which we've done some takeout. We did drive-through Thai food from there once, actually.
Okay. Oh, wow.
But yeah, the Woodsman is the place I've always just gone to, so we tend to just stick with our old haunts.
There you go.
But
you like what you like.
It's a great example, though, of like, Indian, Thai food, all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's nice to have that diversity when you're bored of cooking at home. There is that out there. There are the fast food chain stores are here. Not to say that we don't have any chain stores, but the fast food chain stores are here. So if you got your Taco Bell, Arby's, McDonald's, Burger King, Panda Express, Cravens going on, we got them.
They've got you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about some of the fun things that you like to do in your free time, on weekends. We know that you're very crafty and there is a great arts community here. Would you mind speaking to some of the leisurely things you like to do when you take a break from unpacking your boxes?
Yeah. I love going out to the coast. The coast is probably number one thing I like to do. There's the Devil's Punch Bowl outlets in Lincoln City, the waterfront in downtown Newport, the Marine Science Center. There is Moe's clam chowder is the best. I don't care what anybody says. Moe's clam chowder, you have to have it. So going to the coast is a fan, and it's nice because there's two ways you can get there. One's through Walport and then the south way through Walport. So you can do the loop if you want, and you kind of get a nice little diverse.
Newport versus Walport.
Yeah. What did I say?
I think Walport twice. Doesn't matter.
Newport and Walport. So it's nice to be able to do kind of the coastal loop is what we call it in the family. And in between Waldport and here is Mary's Peak. So you can drive up to the top of Mary's Peak. Haven't been there yet. There it is. There it is. Haven't been up to Mary's Peak yet, but she makes me smile every time I see her, just because I have mountains again. It's not flat like it was where we lived in Virginia. So seeing my mountains again makes me happy too. And then we have gone east. We did a little day trip out to Sisters, Oregon to do a little shopping in their little quaint, quirky downtown.
That's fun. There's some great art galleries and supply places there too.
Yes, great art galleries, supply places, restaurants. We went on a weekend right before the snow season started. We timed it perfectly where we didn't need chains to get over the mountain. Yeah. And we just poked ourselves around the different art galleries, the different stores there, and it's just a real nice little town. So we like doing little day trips to get out of town and do things. When it comes to my arts and crafts side, I haven't been able to explore that as much because still unpacking, still getting settled into the area. But I know Philomath has a very active art scene in October or November.
We'll put on the screen. It might be the last weekends in October or November.
Right.
It'll be on the screen. You're seeing it for Philomath Open Studios.
Yes.
I did a video about that recently. I should know off the top of my head which month it was. It all blends together.
I fully intended to partake in it this last year, but stuff happened and weren't able to. But this year I'm definitely going to that. It's really neat. From what I understand, it's basically local artisans everywhere from jewelry making to fiber arts to pottery open up their studios so they can see how they make their wares, and they also have items available for sale.
Yeah.
And I do know there's a place in Philomath now. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but you can go there and they have different classes, different areas where you can go and do your arts.
Maxtivity Creative Space.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I plan to check that out as well. I do mostly scrapbooking and needlepoint and cross stitch and those type of arts, but I'm excited to explore possibly other arts. Who knows? Maybe I'll expand my repertoire. But then done mostly shopping in Eugene, traveled a little bit up north to Salem and Portland. Like to do the outdoors here when the weather's nice because it's not rainy and cloudy here 365 days a year. That is a fallacy. We have beautiful weather. And in fact, today it's gorgeous clear blue skies with the crisp winter air in the 40s, which those are my favorite kind of days. So we've had a very, very cloudless winter so far, comparatively.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have our moments, and I think spring and summer here are the best to get the true outdoorsy weather where you don't have the humidity that you have on the East Coast, and you have the long, long hours of summer. So there's so many outdoor activities, hiking. I like taking the walks on the hiking trails, and there's levels for everybody. And there's also the biking and very dog-friendly community.
You're just like hitting the highlights, just boom, boom,
so
boom.
That's a lot of the stuff that I like to do in the free time, and that's why this is the perfect place for me. Like I said, I love Corvallis. There is so much here to see and do, both indoors and out.
Denise, welcome home.
Yay! Thank you.
And just a reminder, in case, viewer, listener, if you're just like cooking dinner or brushing your teeth while listening to us talk, all these things we're going to have on the screen, because we've actually got videos that you could use as like follow-up reading to all these things. So I'll have links in the description, but we've done things like narrated drive up Mary's Peak to show what that's like, hike Vallis, park Vallis, bike Vallis, videos about the arts culture like Philomath Open Studios. We've got Oregon outings, which are day trips, including things like here's highlights of Newport. So all that stuff will be on the screen when Denise is talking about it, and the links are in the description below too. Yeah, I mean you are such a great Oregonian. I mean, holy cow.
I love it here. I'm glad I'm here and that I'm not anywhere else anymore. I'm planting my feet here. I'm not going anywhere anymore. This is it. So.
I love it. So you were talking a little bit about the weather there, the weather and the climate. I always get these terms incorrect, but I'm doing my best.
Okay.
So Pacific Northwest has a reputation of just being like really gray and rainy all the time. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the winters here? I mean, you did speak a little bit about how we're in a clear winter right now.
Right.
What should people expect and be prepared for compared to the reputation, which I don't think is always accurate?
Yeah, the reputation is not accurate except for maybe in the fall.
Okay.
Fall, yes, it's cloudy and rainy. The leaves are falling, but see, it's gorgeous here in the fall because of the leaves changing color. So it's after the leaves change color for a few months that it's a little cloudy and dreary and rainy. And it's not, I get why people think saying it rains all the time here is a little terrifying for some people, because I've lived out on the East Coast and I know how it rains on the East Coast. It's just torrential downpour.
Totally different.
It's totally different rain. Here, the rain here is kind of a mist. When there is a downpour, people go, whoa, that's a lot of rain. It's not the standard like it is out on the East Coast.
So it's not just me that feels the raindrops are different.
Yeah, the raindrops are different. And so here, it's kind of useless using an umbrella because it's more of a misty rain. You're just going to want to wear your rain slicker. But the summer, like I just shared, the summers are beautiful. It's mid 80s, no humidity, outside, long hours to take advantage of the outdoors. Spring is beautiful because everything's starting to pop and turn green, and you see the hills in the distance start turning green as well. And it's beautiful. It's very temperate. The winters aren't that harsh. Having said that, when the winter we moved here was when we had the big ice storm for a couple of days, and the town kind of shut down for a couple of days because it was just ice. But that is very, very rare.
That doesn't even happen once per year. I know sometimes people say like, oh, we get an ice storm once per year. I wouldn't say that's accurate.
No, because for me, in my memory going back, because this is my third time here, that's the first storm like that I had ever seen.
And that was the worst I've experienced in 16 years. Yeah. I mean, Ray was outside taking the hummingbird feeders in to defrost them so that the hummingbirds wouldn't get frozen with their poor little hummingbird feet to the
So
things.
that was a rare event. Here it snows. It hasn't, this year it's been very mild. I don't know if we're going to get snow this year.
Last year, the only time it really snowed was on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's going to be a similar thing this year. Yeah.
So the winters are very mild. Even though it gets cold, it's pretty dry. So I don't even know how to say how often we get snow in the season because in childhood, I remember being maybe once or twice.
Yeah. And it doesn't stick around that long.
Yeah.
It's just enough to justify staying inside with some hot cocoa.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, okay, if it's going to be this cold, then give me some snow so I can stay home and have my hot cocoa. That's kind of, but I think coldest it gets is in the 20s, and that's mostly at night and in the daytimes.
And that's during this kind of stuff where it's really clear skies and the heat's just gone.
Yeah.
That's definitely the coldest. Otherwise, it's like in the 30s at night, 40s in the day.
Yeah. So it's pretty temperate. I mean, you see the change of seasons here.
Something that I want to just kind of emphasize or add in there. So you were talking about the progression, and you describe it very well. Yeah. In the fall, it's kind of like rainy. It drizzles a bunch. The leaves go away, but then it is still green in the wintertime because it's like half the trees are deciduous and half the trees are conifer. They're evergreen anyway. Right. So if I compare that to the East Coast where I've lived, not Florida, but like in Connecticut, like Connecticut is actually just
barren,
right? I was going to say desolate.
Yeah.
I hate to be so dramatic, but it's like, it's gray and not green in the wintertime and snows a bunch.
Yeah.
And here it'll be gray, but it's still green and it barely ever snows.
Right.
So,
I
mean, paradise is subjective as is my new catchphrase, but I really feel like it's important to have a realistic expectation of what the weather's like, not just think about the Pacific Northwest reputation. Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah, we have our evergreens that keep it green. It's not, and I was the same when I lived in Virginia, as very similar. There was very little green in the wintertime because all the green went away.
Oh, Virginia and Connecticut.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you're right. Here we do have the evergreen and everything that keeps it green year round. It's not as stark as some of the other areas of the country.
Yeah. So you've gotten to experience a bunch of different places. In a very general sense, we don't need to know like what your electric bill is. That's not the point. Yeah. But in a general sense, do you feel like you can speak to the cost of living around here? Some of the pros and cons? Like what's that like in terms of what people should expect?
I think the housing is, the most expensive part of it because everybody wants to live here and because of the limited. So I think that is where the big chunk of change comes from. But when it comes to the electricity and the basic utilities, I think it's less expensive just because I don't know why, but I think a lot of it has to do with Oregon being really focused on clean living and natural power sources and that part of it. I'm not an expert. This is an assumption I'm making, but comparing my costs of electric and utilities in other areas of the country, here it just seems like, it's not that bad. So I think that the biggest cost is the housing here. Groceries may be a little more expensive because we have a farmer's market.
A lot of fresh local. Yeah.
So we have a lot of fresh local handmade goods. We have the vegetables and the fruit, but we also have the honey and the bread and the meats and the fish and all that come in. And because it's fresh and it's local, and it's mom and pop businesses, it is a little more expensive, but it is worth it. You're getting good quality food. So with the low utilities, but the more expensive food and housing, you kind of balance it out and make the choice. But the day-to-day living here, I think it's fine. I don't see that there's any outrageous costs or anything that should be wary of. I think the cost of housing is the one that kind of, when I came back to look at it, kind of went, okay.
It's a bit more, to me, everything else feels pretty much on par. Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing candidly the vibe, the nuance of that. Yeah. Because if you look at just statistics, it can be very misleading. Mm-hmm. I was in a meeting just the other day where they were talking about how Corvallis was ranked one of the least affordable cities in the entire nation based on some stat of like income versus the housing expense. And a couple of us raised our hand. We're like, does that include the 25,000 students that don't make any money?
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah.
And we're like, that doesn't paint an accurate picture then.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like, that's like, yeah, our housing is more expensive here, but this is not the most expensive market in the world.
Right.
Probably not in the state. It's probably one of the more expensive housing markets in the States, but it's not like you have to literally be like filthy rich to buy a house here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. People I don't know if people realize this or not, but the population of Corvallis divided by half, because half of that's the students at the university. So the true population of the town is probably more around 35,000. So it's lovely. I love having the students here and I love the university, don't get me wrong. But when there's summer here and the students are gone, it's so wonderful.
It's so quiet.
It's very quiet.
It's easy getting around anyway, but it's really quiet in the summers.
Yeah. So it's the university has a lot of programs that you can take advantage of through extension courses. And I say that because when I was a child and I plan to taking advantage of them moving forward, because they do have programs for seniors as well. I'm not a senior yet, but when it comes time, there are those programs. So it's a wonderful resource here for the town of Corvallis. But when the students are gone, there is a different vibe here, and it's nice. It's just, I feel like I'm researching the university, and I'm not. I love the university, but it's different here when the students are gone, and it's kind of a nice little, it becomes even more quainter in a way because it's a little quieter.
And I would say that you kind of get the best of both worlds, right? Because on campus, they've got a lot going on there. If you look at Monroe, there's a lot of restaurants that are downtown that are duplicated on Monroe. Yeah. So it's not like our downtown Corvallis gives you a feeling of being just surrounded by swarms of 18 to 22-year-olds, right? They've got their own thing going. Right. But you still have the access to the arts, culture, economic vitality of University Town. And in the summertime, it's even quieter. Yeah. So it really just is just an awesome balance, I feel like. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, but I think you describe it very well. So I'm probably just repeating what you said, but I'm not a trained interviewer, so I'm doing my best.
So the best of both worlds. You get the busy bustling of a college town, and then you get the quiet quaints of the town when the students aren't here. And I think that's why people kind of come back. They know there's the town behind the university, and they know that there's those services that are not offered by towns that don't have universities here. We have the Majestic Theater here in town, and a lot of that was kind of because of the university. The people working at the university wanted to have culture in town, and there's this abandoned theater on Second Street.
Help me out here.
Yeah, Second Street is down the street from New Morning Bakery.
Wait, are we talking about Majestic?
Yeah, Majestic.
Okay, so the history there, so that was like abandoned and they like brought it back?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So, it was rough back when I was a wee one. But the university was partnership with I believe it was a foundation that revitalized that theater, and a lot of the first productions in it were university students from the theater department.
Nice.
Going doing things there. So, and now it has grown into I'm sure it's still shared, but it's nice seeing that the culture demanded by the university has come out into the community and made the community even better.
Absolutely.
So
I'm taking my niece to see a show there the day after Valentine's Day. I'm looking forward to it.
Which show is it?
It is, I think it's the All-American Drag Night.
Oh, wow. I'll have to check into that. That will be entertaining for sure. But yeah, they've done some really good production there over the years, and I'm looking forward to getting back onto their mailing list so I see what the future productions are going to be.
Yeah. There are a number of performing arts centers, Majestic Theater, Whiteside Theater, right?
Yeah, Whiteside Theater.
The Prax Performing Arts Center, which is new and beautiful on campus. Yeah. And I think the high school. LaSalle Stewart Center. Yeah. Yeah, there's some cool stuff going on.
There is always something. There is always something.
So let's see. As we approach wrapping it up, are there any other like places, be it like favorite hiking spots or shops or restaurants that you'd want to give a highlight to? And then we'll chat about one more question.
Put me on the spot. There's, I think it's called Bald Hill. Bald Hill Hike of Trails. There's the wetlands up the Fraser.
Jackson Fraser wetlands. Yeah.
And the PV Arboretum area, that's fun to go out and just kind of enjoy that out of doors. Walking along First Street, the stuff they have done along First Street is just amazing. That's where they have the farmers market in the spring and summer.
Along the river.
Along the riverfront. And back when I was a child, you did not want to be along the riverfront on your own. It was not a good place to be.
I've heard that. I'm trying to remember which other interviewee said that to me the other day.
Yeah, it was rough. And so when I came back in college and saw they were still in the process of doing what it was today, I was seeing them refurbishing and make it a nice place to be. It made me very happy. And now we'll come down and have dinner in the evening, and after dinner go for a walk along the waterfront because it's just a nice, peaceful, you hear the babbling of the river, and they have some art along the way that you can see. I think there is an official art walk around town.
It's called CAW, Corvallis Art Walk.
Okay.
I think it's the third Thursday of every month. It'll be on the screen for confirmation.
Okay.
And it's going to be part of what we feature in Art Vallis, which is in the works.
So that's something to partake of. And a little personal story, on one of the streets heading down to First Street, there's a marquee for Midway Drive-In Theater. It was taken from a drive-in theater that used to be out of town. And my folks used to take my brother and out there dressed in our pajamas to watch a double feature. So the first movie was usually child-friendly and the second was not. My brother and I fell asleep before the second movie so my parents could have their adult time for the second movie.
This is me not making any jokes because I know your mother. Okay.
So it's very nice that they turned something from my childhood into an art installation. And now every so often they change the quote on the sign as part of the ongoing of the art installation. So it's really neat to see, the past still being an important part of the present Corvallis.
Yes. And come to think of it, there's the Corvallis Art Walk that you mentioned. There's a couple of other things downtown like that too that we send to people. There's like a downtown murals scavenger hunt and like a sculpture scavenger hunt. There's maps with all these things on them. So yeah.
Like I said, there's always something to do. It is a quiet little town, but there's busy undertones. So there's always something to do. So it's nice.
You're a fantastic ambassador to the area. Yeah.
Well, Mike doesn't know this little secret, but my last years in college, I worked as the front desk information person at the local Convention and Visitors Bureau for Corvallis. So
You're like, I got this.
So I kind of have a little in on what there is to do and see. But that was back in the late 80s, early 90s. So things have changed since then. But yeah, I worked the front desk on Saturdays at the local Convention and Visitors Bureau. So when people came from out of town, I would help them with what there was to see and do in the area. So,
that's awesome.
So it's very nice to see that Corvallis continues with that legacy with still having things to do and see in the area. So
yeah. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be enthusiastically moving you back.
There you go. There you go.
As we wrap up today, is there any advice that you would have for people thinking about moving here, whether it's in general or advice for them before they make like a reconnaissance trip?
Well, the obvious recommendation I would say is get hold of Team K Realty, Michael and Noel, because they made things so much easier for me to transition from I basically uplifted my whole life from the East Coast and moved out here without an apartment, without a house, but I had reached out to them and knew if I needed them, they were there for me to do that. I fortunately had a place to land here. But they were a great resource and always available, and I even asked them if they knew of anybody who had jobs in the area, and they were very forthcoming in giving me a couple of connections to reach out to and gave me permission to name drop them. So, and that was just after knowing me for a couple hours. So.
Willed you?
Yeah, there's not much to see, but anyway. So don't let them downplay what they do. They do a great job here. So I do recommend you reach out to them if you're looking for a home, because they are very supportive and are multi-service. Also, I love Corvallis, but I do advise you to explore the surrounding area because there are a lot of lovely little areas attached to Corvallis. Again, my heart's in Corvallis, but like I said, there's Philomath, there's Albany, there's Lebanon that's a little further out that seems to be having kind of a little renaissance out there. So I recommend explore, get to know the area, get to know the community, go exploring and enjoy it.
Yeah, don't necessarily limit yourself just to Corvallis because you maybe happen to see a couple of our videos about Corvallis. That's something that we've had to almost battle against with this, is that it's all about mid-valley living, not just this spot right here.
And the Willamette Valley overall is a lovely place to live. I have the history here, so that's why I'm kind of partial to it. But overall, the general area is just a lovely place to go out, explore, and find your area here in Willamette Valley.
Well, Denise, I really appreciate you taking time to do this, and you're knocking my socks off here. You are a wonderful ambassador for the area and for us, and I thank you kindly for your kind words in that regard. And to just finishing nail what you were saying, take advantage of us as a resource, because we're not just here to sell you a house. That is what we technically do for a living, but we're happy to hop on a casual Zoom call with you before you get here, answer questions, pre-plan your visit, and hopefully connect with you while you're here too. And we enjoy getting to be a resource and ambassadors for the community. So thank you again. And
Anytime.
If you'd like to reach out to us, simply do so. Contact information is on the slide at the end of the screen. So as we say, thanks so much and bye for now.
Have a great day.